Hello folks, after being skill checked by a handful of bosses and thoroughly reminded of my impending old age, I finally crawled out from underneath my lazy boy to go and wash off the all too familiar stench of failure. During this cleansing and somewhere after the crying had stopped, but definitely before the imaginary arguments began, the thought had occurred to me that there does seem to be almost zero coverage in regards to Khazan's progress, its current state and its future. Now with an idea in mind, I felt it was only right to pick up this mantle myself and become the hero you all deserve, feeling as exhilarated as Anakin must have felt when he stared down those 12 younglings in the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. I promptly returned to my lair to valiantly stare at my PC monitor for the next 6 hours. Now, this kind of endeavour doesn't come without its side effects, such as the impulse to write and commit to monologues like the one you've just heard, but we have found out an awful lot, and now I've got all of that out of my system. Let's get started. Coming up first is the big one, and that is that we have free DLC confirmed for May. There are basically no additional details as of now, but I would assume we will hear more in the coming weeks. If I were to hazard a guess, I'd say this is for the most part cut content that will be touched up and repurposed as DLC. As for the size and or details of this DLC, there really is nothing to go off yet. I would manage your expectations, however. Nepal are by no means as big as some of the other dev teams out there that we do tend to compare smaller developers to. As competent as Nepal clearly seem to be, they practically have a never-ending list of things to work on now Khazan has released. It's nice we have this news to look forward to, and I will be keeping my eyes peeled for additional updates, roadmaps, etc. So do rest assured you'll find it here as soon as it's announced. And that's not to say the DLC is likely to be short or small, but we really have nothing to go off currently, so it would be wise to just limit expectations. Now, after digging as deep as I could on this DLC and coming up with nothing, I decided to turn my attention to Khazan's success, seeing if we could gauge anything from it and what it can tell us about the future. The stats are pretty good, and they are as follows. Up until roughly a few hours before making this video, we have over 9k reviews on the PSN with a 4.5 out of 5 rating. We have a very positive rating on Steam with over 6,000 reviews and a 91% of those being very positive. Xbox is just over 100 reviews on the store with a 4.5 out of 5 rating, a much smaller scale but following the exact same sentiment as all of the other platforms. Now, approximately 250,000 copies have been sold, according to Gamalytic. This figure is to be taken with a pinch of salt, but for the most part, we can assume that Khazan has done quite well for now. It pales in comparison to the likes of Black Myth in its first weeks post-launch, but the hype behind Black Myth was substantially bigger than Khazan's. Not to compare the games in any way, but just to give some idea of scope and what huge success actually looks like. That's not to take away from Khazan's achievements. 250,000 is very respectable thus far, and an overwhelmingly positive global response should only ever have a positive impact on the game's future. Now, to take a look at the Steam charts, we can see an all-time peak of 30k players roughly 3 days after the official launch. We have a 20k 24-hour peak and roughly 13,000 players online right now. It'll be interesting to see what these numbers look like in a month or so, but for now, given Khazan's scope and its single-player nature, these are by no means bad stats. They're not great either, but I'd argue that's more to do with Khazan's hype as opposed to its actual performance, which are two very different things. To compare these numbers to the likes of Black Myth again, we can see the disparity between a huge success and a modest one. I appreciate I may sound like I'm trying to drag Khazan down here. That's definitely not my intention. I'm really fond of this game. I've thoroughly enjoyed my experience over the past few weeks, and I don't intend to put it down anytime soon, but I feel it's important to add such an extreme comparison in order to reinforce the management of expectations. Neo 1, for instance, did have worse stats than Khazan when it first launched, and for the most part, that franchise is considered a success and beloved by its community. I would assume Khazan will follow a similar path in terms of growth and popularity, maybe even more so given action RPG's sudden increase in popularity over the past few years, but regardless, in terms of Nepal's size and position within the gaming industry, this is definitely a win for them. So with the future DLC out of the way and having already discussed Khazan's current position within gaming, the final part of this video is regarding our current state of affairs, running down unknown issues, seeing what's next in the pipeline, etc. Beginning with Khazan's known issues, I'd say the big one here is Ozma's scroll/recipe still being bugged out for certain players. So those unaware, the unique crafting recipe dropped by Ozma does seem to be having some issues, in which upon defeating Ozma, the recipe is nowhere to be found. It was assumed this would be fixed in Khazan's April 4th patch, but this has not been the case. Next, we have core issues on broken achievements and trophies. I've looked into this a fair bit, and it would appear that the following achievements and trophies are broken. Here we have Reddit post by user Deep Voice Guy, who has ever so conveniently listed the affected achievements and trophies. Now, this list could be a little bit dated. For the most part, it does seem that all issues regarding achievements and trophies have persisted past the April 4th patch, but you may find that in your own experience, you might not have issues with all of these. Regardless, there is a known workaround for these issues, which is currently on screen, and I'll leave a link for this Reddit post in the description below. I haven't tried or tested this, but it does seem to be a viable workaround, at least until these issues are fixed within what I'd expect to be the next week or so. Outside of these issues, all of the bugs are for the most part quite minor. I'm generalizing quite a lot, and that isn't to say that there aren't a small amount of players out there having their own unique issues, but if you've experienced any of what's been mentioned, just know that we are all in the same boat currently. That's it for this guide, folks. I do intend to create similar videos to this one, at least when we have something substantial to report on or look into. I've left a hearty question for the devs regarding future Q&As and or when we can expect any form of roadmap or outline on Khazan's future. I will be throwing their response and any other information into a future video, so that'll be on the way very soon. Regardless, I do of course have a range of guides on the channel already, and I am working on many more, so do feel free to stop on by and check things out. Otherwise, thanks for watching, folks, and until next time, peace.